So we're here with Jacob from Piston Head, and the Audi has the floor. Okay, so our spark plugs are hitting the headers, so just cut it.
Well, hopefully if it breaks, it's spectacular.
Yeah, I think we got an issue with the clutch still. That last run, we were running on 5 cylinders. I panic, throw my helmet on, put it in gear and go, and forget to turn the second scavenge pump on again. We do a 360 at the infield of Daytona. What happens? The back of the water pump pops off. We did everything, so something's gonna break.
You didn't mention the smoke.
This is what kept Justin Bell from finishing the laps. All right, so we didn't win the race in Florida, but we still won because we got the attention of some big companies that we're very excited to work with. Holley EFI Performance Products is setting us up with an entire new fuel and ignition system, boost control, and we are now building a bulletproof engine management system. So, here we go. I love this car, and it looks very nice. We pulled the engine to figure out what was wrong with the clutch. The clutch is getting fixed. We got a pile of parts from Holley. That's all the parts from Holley on the bench. We've also bought new wastegates and blow-off valve from TurboSmart. Our cheap ones from VS Racing were leaking. And as much as the Holley will do, it will not fix a poor mechanical setup. Now there's a few things that we did wrong. I thought that there was a vent on the fuel tank. There is not on the tank itself, so that's a biggie. The turbos, I had the boost sensor coming off of this pipe, which doesn't turn on until the diaphragm, this diaphragm connects the two, and it won't connect the two until it sees pressure to open it. So I needed them on the outlet of the small turbo, not this pipe. That was a big oops. We were never running on the two bigger turbos on, we were in, while we were snow drifting, we were not in the Project Car Challenge. The cam sensor, the wires when they go to the front cover there are reversed. They don't, I did not know that, so that was an issue. We did not have boost reference on our fuel pressure regulator, so we're gonna take care of that. We had a couple boost leaks. I checked for boost leaks, and we had a couple leaks on our pipes, especially on this piece going to the manifold, so we're gonna be fixing that. And yeah, obviously leaks that we're all gonna take care of with all new hoses and pipes and Y fittings and fittings. So we're gonna get to our mechanical stuff first. Gonna run all new fuel lines, and we'll take you through step by step. Then we'll start adding the computers and the wiring, and then we'll be putting our engine and transmission and stuff back in again. There's a lot of magic going on underneath here too. It is a shame because most of the car is underneath the car.
Yeah.
And it's gonna continue that way, even though it's hard to get at. Like the compressor for the air tank, I think I'm gonna put like everything as low as possible. Just for that center of gravity. No, everything boost, all boost control done by a little air compressor.
Right, right.
That's good stuff going on. All right, let's see if we can get on the Roots history. All right, so we had some major issues with Quattro Deboss and Super Speeders Rob Project Car Challenge. Biggest one right off the bat was our cooling system. We had oil going into the turbos, which was another system, fuel management, boost control, and engine management. We're working on each system at the same time. It just takes a while to accumulate all the parts, the right fittings, the right whatever we need. We're gonna take each system that let us down, explain how we're gonna fix it, but the first one we're gonna tackle is the cooling system. So it's been a while since it looked like this, but nice aerial view of that. It's stinking hot. This is my third shirt of the day.
Still on the first.
Yeah, because we know who works harder.
Happens.
Thanks for all your help, Jacob. Check out Piston Head if you haven't yet. Big into drifting. We'll be drifting with them at some point. We were going to do Humberstone together, and then something else came up. Stick around for that. All right, so there was a few mechanical things wrong with our Audi. Besides the fuel and the engine management and the boost control, which is what Holley's gonna replace for us, there was also some other issues that was keeping this car from running to its peak performance. One of those things is leaky wastegates. We only had enough money for $100 wastegates from VS Racing, and even at idle they leaked coming out the side. So we've got new wastegates from TurboSmart. We'll have to weld a new flange on there, and hopefully the exit will still fit with the smaller flange. We also had our cooling issues with the water pump not being able to push the coolant to the back, so we've got an electric water pump that's going to go in the back. Very simple, straightforward stuff. We're going to fix that before we get deep into the Holley stuff. But before anything else, these panels were bent, partly because I put the forklift under there, and partly because we were sideways in the dirt at Daytona. And I'm happy that I get to say that I was doing 360s in the dirt at the Daytona track. Pretty cool. Anyway, we're gonna drill these out. Got some nice new rivets. Oh, where have you been all my life? Automatic riveter. It even catches the rivets. I love this thing. There's about 1,000, maybe 1,500 rivets in this thing. And it takes about, I would say about maybe a pound of pressure to pull a rivet through rather than squeezing hands. Now, thank you, Milwaukee.
Oh, that didn't even hurt my arm. That's awesome. And there's goodies inside. Little candies for later.
So we've got this nice and straight again. I think we're gonna mount the water pump right at the back here, but it depends on where the fuel lines end up. This pump is easy to move and can really go anywhere. We'll put a T in here and put a temperature sensor for the differential. So we'll turn on when it has a certain temperature and then monitor it because we need data. And data is data. We need data. So just a steel mounting plate right onto here, but it all depends on where the fuel tank ports end up. All right, well, tank's out. We can kind of see what's going on in here, and we're gonna clean up the scavenge pump. This is the cooler for the diff. What we're going to do now is put a sensor in line to tell us the actual temperature and not turn the pump on until it was operating temperature. So Holley uses the GM temperature sensors, so nice and inexpensive. There's a gazillion of them around. So we'll plug that in. We'll put this hose nicely right here, and that'll clean everything up real nice at the back. So what's nice about that is if we spring a leak and we don't realize it, if it gets too hot, we can tell the computer to shut the car down instead, rather than blow your diff, because there's not too many of them kicking around anymore, although good chance to upgrade, I guess. But anyway, we'll try and protect that. So our first major mechanical issue was the water pump coming apart, and I think it was the high speeds with the extra load of bringing the coolant to the back. We had 1-inch line going to the rad, and then we had 1.25 inches coming back, which is the standard size coming out of a 5.3. The Duramax rad has 1.25 inches going in and 1.5 inches coming back. We're fixing that with this Messier electric water pump. This is a 48 gallon per minute, if I can remember right. This is 1.25 inches coming in and out. We're gonna do both lines 1.25 inches. It's still 1.5 inches coming out of the rad, and that'll be feeding the water pump again, and then a full loop. So basically what's coming out of the rad is going to be 1.5 inches, and up to the water pump, which is a very short run, the rest is going to be 1.25 inches. So trying to think of where to mount it. I would have liked to mount it right here, which is where the out of the rad is, but the exhaust goes there. It's too tight to fit it right in this spot here, and I think it's going to get hot by the exhaust, which is going to kind of undo what we want. So we decided to mount it right here, which isn't great for bottoming out. Hopefully we don't do that. More than likely we'll bottom out in the middle anyway. We raised the suspension up a bit. We dropped it pretty significantly for Sebring and Daytona. So we raised it up quite a bit, actually, about an inch. But the center of gravity is nice and low. So this has nice mounts. You can mount it, basically rotate it any way you want. We are gonna put it right here. Some nice hose clamps. We're just test fitting that to make sure, then we'll drill a couple more holes and bolt that solid. I do have to make a bit of a 90 here and make that hose come through right here. So we'll drill another 2.5 inch hole, and then I'll probably take the saw and just cut a strip and then poke this hole through. Hopefully we can turn this enough that it doesn't have to be a 90 here. Trying to keep as few 90s as possible. With the fueling system, we were told that every direct 90 is like adding 3 feet to the length of the line that you're pushing at. So really trying to reduce the 90s, but in some instances there is no other choice. So I got my vent leaking nicely out of the diff. That's fantastic. But anyway, let's drill that hole and stick that through. Well, that's about dead center of the hole. Where'd I end up with maybe, oh jeez. Man, that's good. That's too bad. I really wanted to come up here, I just can't because of the exhaust. So, you know what? I bet you if Lyle can bend me a nice 90, just past 90, flare the one end, it'll be perfect. We're gonna go see Lyle tomorrow. So Oxbeam got a hold of us and asked us if we wanted any lights for the Audi. We said absolutely, mainly because we've switched from a mechanical water pump to an electric. We have a much higher current drawing fuel pump, and along with the Dominator, which takes a lot of amperage as well, we need to cut back somewhere, and LED lighting is a good way to go with that. So if they have one for 1991 Audi, I'm sure they have the bulb for your car. So check out the link in the description. And basically this is, they just wanted us to show how difficult it is to install these. There's one. There's two. We don't need a CAN bus because we will be running these through our Dominator setup. But because the LEDs draw a lot less, it might trigger your computer into thinking that you have a bulb out, and it will flash very quick. So they come with a CAN bus. That's basically, it just goes in between. You get the point, put it back in, plug that back in again. There we go. So we also asked from 1157 bulbs. So these will do our turn and our brake. And we also asked for some 1156 bulbs, which will be our backup light. We also asked for some side marker lights. So basically, if you have a car, Oxbeam makes the headlights for them, or the tail lights, or whatever else. So check them out. Good alternative to save your alternator a little bit once it's got such a giant load on it. Geez, that is bright. So that's our tail. That's our brake. Look at that. Oh. Were my cheeks red? When you're going down the road, it is really important to aim these because you can blind everybody coming towards you. You can have them too low, you can have them too high. How's that one? That one's really bright, I think. So if everybody is coming towards you and flashing you, you might want to turn them down just a little bit. That's just the way it is, but very cool. Okay, so as for our engine mechanical wise, we've got bigger fuel injectors, a lot bigger coils, and bigger fuel rails, along with a bigger intake with a much bigger opening. I think it's 102 millimeter. For the coils, I just kind of, these are the only screws I had long enough just to point them in the right direction. We're going to weld bungs onto our own valve cover. Holley does make brackets for these to sit in, but it brings them tight. And I think this is the best way to avoid the spark plug wires from hitting the exhaust manifold. We're getting rid of this water pump, and we're basically just having two pipes and then in and an out coming from the front of the block. But I don't know whether I still need to keep something spinning for the belt. It's kind of annoying because the water pump is also the mount for the alternator. So if we get our pipes coming off the front, we're going to have to do something with the mount for the alternator as well. But we do have these spacer plates that came with our belt rerouting the ICT system. So we might be able to just weld pipes onto that as well. We'll get into that in a minute. Other than that, the wiring is so simple for this thing. Everything is labeled. The biggest thing is to make sure that there's 2 wiring harnesses that come with the coils. There's an even and an odd. So make sure that the evens are on the right and the odds are on the left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And unfortunately, because we have our intake backwards, our wiring gets a little bit messy because our wires are long enough to reach right over here. So I'm gonna cut the Holley wiring harness apart and redo it. This is hurting me actually, doing this. I'm sorry to whoever spent a long time making this harness, but I'm gonna do it better because I want everything looking nice and clean and neat. All right, so we've eliminated our water pump and we've replaced it with these little fittings. So basically it's just an aluminum piece that these 12 van fittings screw into with O-ring on the back side. Almost feel like drilling that out a little bit, but if that's a 3/4 inch hole, that's about the same as an 1 1/4 line if you stack them on top of each other. So what we did was we went to VNR and grabbed a couple steel fittings. And these are just 12 van. I put them in the lathe, I turned them down a little bit, just got rid of the threads, and then shaved a hair of it off on one side so that I could stick it in a pipe like this. So this is our 1 1/4 pipe. I flattened it, and then I hit it with a punch just in the center and made 2 little round things. We'll weld those in solid, and then take 2 45 fittings, and they'll be coming out underneath here. So we'll weld this shut, and then we're gonna weld this on the pipe just a little bit on an angle. So one fitting will be straight coming out, and the other one we can put on a 45, and then we'll do the same with this one here, and it will nicely have 4 hoses coming out right about here, and then current turning up to the engine. I think that should work really, really nicely. Like that. Just want to make sure you take the galvanizing off. If it is galvanized, put a little flat spot in it. One goes in there. The other one goes like this. Line up the flat spots. And that is 2 holes going into 1. Okay, so I welded the fittings together first, and now I'll shove them in this pipe and then weld around the outside, and that should be 100% perfect. So I'll take these lines off now, weld them solid. I'd like to TIG them, but I know I'm not good enough at TIGging yet. I'm experimenting a little bit. But I did this for a reason, that I can have a 45 fitting come up here and come out nice and straight, and then we can have a straight fitting here, and same thing with this. I'll have a 45 on this one, and then the other fitting will come out straight. From there, we don't know the exact length yet because we don't have the engine in place. So those lines will come later. But the rest of it is figured out as is. So I don't know if you guys know what to do with the thermostat. Comment down below as to when to turn the water pump on. I guess when the engine temperature hits a certain spot, we can turn the electric pump on. But do we leave the thermostat out or do we leave it in? I'm not sure. Comment down below on how to do that if you guys know about the electric water pump. But I'm positive that will fix the situation that we have with the back of the water pump popping off. So we're done with that. Fixed. So I'm feeling great about our cooling system. Next video we'll be getting into our turbo issues, which was getting too much oil, forgetting to turn the pumps on. All of that going to be figured out with a couple simple little things that we ran out of time with before the YouTube project car challenge. And is going to be easily fixed with the Holley system. Holley got us just enough parts for us to win first best in class for rally race car at Motorama, which is Canada's biggest car show. So that was great. We're getting all these stuff working and functioning properly just in time for LS Fest, which is happening next month. So the car will be back in Bowling Green, Kentucky on September 7th, 8th, and 9th. You can meet us there. It'll also be at our open house on September 19th. So stick around for information on that. If you don't know much about the car, go back to previous videos. The car has a really neat history already, and it's only going to get better from here. So lots to fix, lots to figure out. Not enough time to do it, but we're going to do it. And that's part of the fun that we're having, right? So thanks for watching. Subscribe, check out all the other videos. Stay filthy. Here we go.